Since speaking about my experience with the justice system and what happened to me, I can't even begin to count the amount of people that have said to me that I'm brave. And I want to challenge that politely because I know people mean it with the kindest intentions and they mean it as a compliment and with positive thoughts. But what about it is actually brave? Is it the openness around the fact that we're admitting this physical thing happened to us as a survivor against our will without our consent? Or is actually the bravery seen as bravery because we know that when we speak out about something like this, we massively run the risk of society judging us because of the stigma that sits with people who have been a survivor of rape? I personally think it's the latter. And I think it's actually people know that there is a stigma about it. People know that there's a lot of judgment that sits with it. It's the same reasons of when people do say this thing happened to them, they get questions like, well, what were you wearing? How much had you had to drink? Well, what were you doing there at that time? Yeah, but you went into that place with them, didn't you? And it's the immediate possibility of the survivor actually owning some level of responsibility and fault with what happened. It's the only crime that I can think of, and please correct me if I'm wrong, where somebody can say this thing happened to them and people immediately jump to questioning the person's honesty or integrity. I've never heard of somebody that's been mugged and people have said, yeah, but what were you wearing? Or somebody that had attempted murder and they got pushed off a cliff and said, oh, yeah, but what were you doing there? Now, we seem to just assume and make it like society acceptable, if that's the right phrase, like acceptable in society that these nutters exist and are going to be roaming around harming people and raping people, and yet therefore the person that is more as responsible or even partly responsible is the person that was in the wrong place at the wrong time. So really the bravery isn't strictly to do with speaking out about the physical thing that happened to you against your will. It's the risk of how society are going to receive it. But almost everybody that has reached out one way or another that has been positive, which is the majority, a high majority, have used the word brave. And I don't think it's brave if you break it down to actually say this physical act happened to me nearly 30 years ago. People think it's brave because they know that they're standing up against the societal norms, against the forbidden thing to do, the expectation that you'll just be silent and then remain silent. Why can't they let it go? And actually, maybe we have let it go, but we're just trying to make a difference. In the same way, and I'm not saying any of these particular things are on a par with each other. I'm not in a position to make that judgment. I can only talk from my own experience. But I've heard of cancer survivors speaking out. But people understand quite quickly that they're doing that to support other people that are going through cancer. I've seen people who have been physically beaten up talking about it in domestic violent relationships to help other survivors in domestic violence relationships, not necessarily sexual violence. What about war veterans that go away to war and they come back with PTSD? And when they talk about it, yeah, some people might think they're brave, but generally it's an encouraged thing to help other people that are battling with PTSD from the war vets and the people that have been in the same position, the ones that are suffering in silence that people aren't talking about their own experience. For me, it's no different. But immediately there seems to be a judgment attached to it, like an immediate shock, horror, jaws hit the ground, eyebrows are raised. I can't believe they're talking about a sexual assault. Why? It's because of the judgment that sits in society and unconsciously how we judge it and how we expect people to respond to it. And emotionally, people aren't sure exactly how to be as well. Because I can assure you, if somebody's experienced a sexual assault, they will have some form of trauma experience. Where they are on that journey will be very unique and personal to them. But almost everybody that has, not almost everybody who will have experienced such a thing will have experienced trauma. But if you get too emotional about it, you can be deemed as unhinged or not emotionally regulated. Or if you're not emotional enough about it, then it can't have been that bad. They don't really seem bothered. And people come with their own biases of how people should behave, how they should feel, how they should speak about it, and what they should do before and after. And these are the judgments that sit, and they're often quite different from one person to the next as well. But because most people unconsciously carry them, it is deemed brave because you know that you're putting yourself right in the firing line to receive that type of stigma and that type of judgment from other people because of the norms in society of what the expectations are and how people view it. It's one of the reasons why I mentioned my name in the very first video that I created on this channel, because it's normally so again, forbidden to say, this is my name and this is what happened to me. So if I can play any small part in breaking that stigma and breaking those societal norms, it will make it easier for other people to stand up and maybe report their assault that whenever it happened to them, and also just be more open that it did happen to them so they don't have to live in that place of silence. But I'm not for a second suggesting that if you are a silent survivor that saying that you should go out and be as public. Unfortunately for me, I have to be a bit more public than the average person if I am to inspire other people that have been through something similar. Another motivation for me was that as I was living as a silent survivor, I felt like I was leading a double life. And for me, breaking my silence was me bringing both my lives back into one. There was the public life that everybody saw. I don't mean public as in social media, I mean just my friends and family. And there was the one that I was dealing with that nobody knew about. And by being open about what happened, I'm bringing those two lives into one, which is incredibly liberating, very freeing for me because it was a huge burden to carry a second life and a second, the double life basically. So going back to the bravery thing, I think most people that say I'm brave, they're not necessarily saying I'm brave to expose the thing that happened to me that I didn't want to happen to me. What they're really saying is it's brave to speak up about it because of the stigma that is associated and attached to people that have survived such a thing. And I'm just not willing to carry that stigma. I'm not willing to carry that on other people's behalves, society's behalves. And if making these videos just plays one tiny, tiny little part of trying to change that stigma, then so be it. I also think what adds to this stigma in society that I can personally believe is there anyway is the unconscious biases that we have just from the terminology that we use. We use terminology like innocent until proven guilty when somebody says that person harmed me. Well, by default, innocent until proven guilty, if you're going head to head with that person, you must be lying until proven truthful. Nobody ever says two innocent people are going to court today and we're going to see what happens. They say we're going to court today and they're innocent until proven guilty and they have to prove it. And we don't walk around thinking about it so consciously like that. But even that way of talking about it, about the innocent until proven guilty, adds to the stigma. It adds to the judgment. I remember reading an article online years ago. It was before I came forward to the police. I can't remember who, where, or who wrote it or anything. But I do remember it was about a 13-year-old and a 15-year-old boyfriend and girlfriend. The girl was 13, the boy was 15. And they were out late one night on the weekend, about midnight to 1 o'clock, and they were at the park or something like that. Long story short, they came across a group of young 20-year-olds. So they were men, but in their early 20s, who started to beat up the 15-year-old boy who ran off to save his life and then proceeded to rape the girl one by one. And when I was reading the comments for this particular article, I can't fail to recognize that a lot of the comments were things like, well, what was she doing out at that time of night? What was she doing at the park at midnight or after? What was a 15 and a 13-year-old doing out so late at night? Why did they go to the park at such a time? It's obviously not safe there. Whereas even if those questions had a place, for me that would be question number 50. Why is it question number one? Why is question number one not what the hell is a group of young men in the early 20s doing raping a 13-year-old? But the fact that people had immediately jumped to the responsibility and maybe some fault or some blame actually lies with the survivor, that's one of the stigmas that comes with saying that this thing happened to me too, and being willing to stand up against that stigma. And that is why I believe people think it's brave. I also think in society there is this fear that you'll stop being seen as yourself rather than this is who I am and this is what happened to me. Often people judge this as if the two become combined and you are the person that had this thing happen to me, and that becomes your title, your label, rather than being completely separate things and it just happens to be an experience. And until we can stand up against that stigma as well, then people almost start feeling and fearing it's going to be part of their identity and how they are known by other people. I'll just say, just before I wrap up this video, that if you've watched this far and listened this far, then something I've said has somewhat resonated with you. Then hopefully you found it useful. But if you know somebody else that is a silent survivor or is going through something similar, then please consider sharing this video with them, because the more we can come together and be shameless about it, the more we're going to have a better impact on how people feel about it, and possibly even how many people come forward and report their assaults to the police as well. But that's pretty much it. And other than that, until next time.